We're here. We're live. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Really excited to have all of you here together today for another edition of Syelo Tank. Today, I think it's a pretty special pitch because we have the team at Pin going to be walking us through their product and showing us what they built. We have Connor and Steve. Connor spearheads revenue. Steve is the CEO. And the reason why I said I think this is a special pitch is because Steve and Connor are part of a founding team, another founding team that had exited already in the space that I think many of us are familiar with, called Interstellar, who ultimately sold to Greenhouse Software. And then they got the band back together and said, let's go be rock stars once again. So I think what's unique about this is we have two, founders who know this space maybe better than others. And are building for a demographic of user that they've already had success in. So they know, I think at a high level, what they need to be building, but really excited to be diving in to the Pin product. So without further ado, Connor, Steve, it's your show. We're excited to jump into Pin and to learn more.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for having us here, Amir. I might have to have you be the introductory for all of my demos. That was a great intro, and thank you for the kind words.
Anytime.
Very cool. Well, I'm actually going to kick it to Steve to get us started here. We created like a pretty short deck, so we'll just kind of follow along with that to begin. We figured we might just give you guys like a little bit of background on us, why we're doing what we're doing and how we're different. And then at that point, actually open up for questions before we hop into more of like the demo. And then we can do, of course, questions again after the demo, but wanted to separate it to make this more of a conversation than just us talking at you guys for the next like 30 or so minutes here. So let me go ahead and pop this open and we will go from here. Steve, to you.
Cool. So hi, I'm Steve, CEO of Pin. I think we started officially about like a few-ish months ago on the product and the project. So what is Pin? We're trying to basically automate the entire sourcing process of recruitment. So sourcing, as everyone knows, outbound sourcing is identifying, finding candidates, finding contact information to reach out to them, personalizing basically the emails towards each and every candidate that you're reaching out to, and then finally communicating with them and actually scheduling that first face-to-face. So back in the day in Interstellar, we kind of just built more like tools around to help you do this. And Pin is kind of your AI agent to automate everything from start to finish. So think of it as all of those processes that I just mentioned today, we are literally going to fully automate the entire process, start to finish. Given that like LLMs, OpenAI, Anthropic, Claude, all these new LLMs are getting smarter quarter over quarter. And we're basically betting that in a year's time, they'll get even smarter and even better and make basically this process that no one really likes a lot. Sourcing is probably the least amount of time people like spending in it. We want to help you basically completely automate that process from start to finish. I may have like skipped over a lot of things, but basically we have 4 processes of these that we have built today. Connor will demonstrate that later. We have sourcing, identifying candidates. As you can probably see, there's a lot of products and tools that kind of like you have to conjoin together in order to get working. So there's sourcing, there's outreach. So you need a product or tool to like email, manage your LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. So Gem's kind of like one of those big players in that space. Inbox, which is like just kind of communicating with them and making sure you're on top of them and getting the first face-to-face. And schedule is also another one. We'll show you kind of all of these 4 features in play. It's actually really awesome. Another kind of item that we are going to attempt in the future, which we'll talk about way later down, is application reviews. So something very similar to sourcing will also be able to help you view applications more effectively. But let's talk about each and every. Oh yeah, since we've been around for about 4 or 5-ish months or so, of which we've kind of have a few already partners, recruiters using our product already, more specifically founders too. And we found that like we can make hires within about 14 days of using the product from start to finish. Very quickly, very effectively, without even needing to like lift a finger, we were able to make these hires almost without any effort, which is great. Nick, Radar, almost 200 person company, Range, a very fast growing company now. I think they raised their Series A at like 13 million. So yeah, we are helping them make their key hires with only just a single recruiter. Let's talk about sourcing. So we have every single resume, possibly known on LinkedIn, of which the cool thing that we do, I think one of the better things is everyone's familiar with Boolean searches. And the one thing is that I think the best source that everyone uses and everyone recognizes is LinkedIn Recruiter. You kind of like you translate a job description and you basically try to figure out what search parameters do I put into here to figure out how do I get these candidates. What we built actually is, think of like a Google search. You can type in literally anything that you like and we'll be able to find everything inside of their resume. So there are no structured inputs anymore where you have to like figure out how to put people into boxes. We basically built a system that kind of like encompasses everyone's like resume, every minute detail that's in their resume we can search for. So the idea is now you just give us the requirements that you're looking for and we're finding the perfect matches every single time. After that, you found, let's say, a list of 100 people, right? Now you're getting to a point where you don't want to feed them just straight email templates. What we do now is we customize every single email one by one, adding little tidbits about their resume, their experiences, etc., to every single email that we send. So every single email is customized towards the candidate. And best of all, we actually match your language over time. So we match basically how you send and write emails to candidates, so it matches more and more of your tone. Once they respond back to you, we've built basically this collaborative inbox where any of your teammates, including yourself, can see kind of the email communication with a candidate. So if someone responds back, anyone can see it, but the best part about this will also suggest the next response. So if someone asks for meeting time, right, like say I'm available tomorrow at 4, Pin will automatically create a suggested response and a calendar invite for you, ready for you to send and so forth. And if that isn't enough, you can also make your own scheduling decisions here with like our own calendar interface built straight into the platform. What we found over time is this is we have 3 modes actually. So first one is, or 2 modes. You can turn on full automation from start to finish. You can, meaning that like every single step will just be fully automated for you. And the end result is literally just people booking time with you candidates booking time with you. And the assisted version is you can pick and choose what level of automation that you want. So let's say if you don't want you don't want like every email to be personalized, you want to do it yourself, you can turn it off and like operate that yourself, but you still want, let's say, suggestions or candidate recommendations, you can turn those pieces on. You can pick and choose what level of automation you want, depending on how comfortable you are with AI, or just completely turn it on where automation just makes everything completely instant. Yeah, and what we found again with kind of like some design partners that we've been working with is we find that we make hires within literally 14 days or less, versus the typical time what we find is 30 to 45 days to make a hire from start to finish. But yeah, this is kind of the product that we have today, and I'll have Connor kind of demonstrate what we built.
Yeah. Before we hop into more of like the actual live demo portion of the conversation here. Does anybody have any questions for either of us as pertains to the company, the team, the vision, the mission, anything like that before we get a little bit more technical here?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where do you see the biggest value here? Is it in the automation around the messaging and the outreach? Is it in identifying the candidates with AI? What's the biggest value?
I think it's very dependent on your workflow, right? So if you say you need more augmentation in sourcing, we can do it fully for you. We can fully automate it so you can save some time or get basically 10x more candidates into your pipeline. Or let's say like you're like so focused on one other aspect, right? And then outreach can really help you out, just kind of like manage and organize the conversation with candidates. It just highly depends on your workflow. You can basically pick and choose, or you could say like, I just need full automation. I need just like some outside resources to help me just kind of get things going. I would say the best, you'll see soon, it's all of the above.
I have a follow-up question to Tony. Hey, all, this is Adam Starr. What is specifically built into the product now or into your roadmap that specifically would allow your customers to provide more value back to candidates?
I guess maybe we'll answer that towards the end, but my follow-up to you would be like, what specifically kind of like are you looking for in terms of like feedback to the candidates? We're not like an ATS of any sort, so we're not really providing kind of like that like end feedback portion. It's more dependent on you still. We're just more kind of like the agent behind the scenes helping you augment kind of your process of outbound sourcing.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I'll wait until you get to that section and see if it addresses what I'm thinking.
Cool.
I have a question that maybe you answer during the rest of the presentation, so feel free to push me off to the side if that's the case. I know one of the challenging things that AI just hasn't addressed very well is being able to find sort of those meaningful inflection points when you're reaching out to candidates at scale, right? You see this through LinkedIn's AI and several other ones where it'll find meaningless bits of their resume or their portfolio and be like, hey, I see you went to Ohio State, you know, or something that just wouldn't make sense in the spoken vernacular. Like you wouldn't write that if you were, you know, serious about reaching out. And, you know, I've always been thinking, what if, you know, AI could help in sort of the enrichment, meaning, you know, going behind the scenes and saying, hey, look, here's Johnny Smith. And, you know, through, you know, open web searching and other things along those lines, we found he's recently spoke at a conference, delivered a white paper, you know, was mentioned in the news or in the press for doing something cool, and being able to pull that in as like a unique way to differentiate your message and break through the noise. Are you thinking along those lines, or kind of how are you thinking about using AI to generate those messages without, you know, it looking AI, for lack of a better way to put it?
For sure. I think like one of the key details that you mentioned is kind of looking out and beyond kind of like what's available to you. I would say a majority of candidates probably do not have that level of detail or information that's available on the internet, right? And so there are versions of where like we try to do our best to figure out like what we can kind of add to the messaging about them. And if there's more details beyond that, we'll also like additionally do that. I would say this is a progressive process. So over time, this has become a lot better, a lot smarter. It's also going to know and understand more about you and your company that you're hiring for over time too. But the initial part is more like, you know, you may see that like kind of like that AI messaging a little bit, but I think it's more like 6 months down the road, it will just know exactly tidbits about your company, tidbits about candidates over time. But at the current phase, yes, we're thinking way beyond that, just to like make sure that each and every message is custom and like tailored towards like you, your company, and the candidate. At the current moment, I think it is still a work in progress. But yeah, I am very, I look forward to the future in terms of like how AI can really change this game. And it will eventually over time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey guys, I put this in the chat, but curious, with it using your own language and past outreach to kind of shape answers for your future, is there a way to like mitigate or avoid maybe continuing or making biases worse? Or have you guys thought about that? If it's taking, obviously not on purpose, but if it's taking the way you talk and kind of formulating whether it's views on how you've passed through candidates in the past, how does that work?
Two major, I think you made two major points here. So first one is messaging. You can always basically like put into a manual queue to essentially review. But anyways, we'll show you the product and how that operates and works. But you can turn it into a manual queue so you can review essentially every AI automated message that goes out, or you could, if you're very comfortable with it, fully automate it. In the first piece, you mentioned, which is like, how do we make sure AI doesn't like have biases towards like selecting candidates? You'll see soon, we do only factual evidence. So meaning that we like things that you could factually review in a resume versus like any other like related biases that you could create. And we have special guardrails in place to ensure that you don't do searches that are illegal or potentially biased, any of that kind of stuff to prevent you from doing that.
Cool, thanks.
On that note, I think what we'll do is like hold off for a little bit on questions because we do want to show you and demonstrate the products. So I'll have Connor here kind of like walk you through kind of like what a typical experience is with Pin.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, let's start at the very beginning here. What I'm going to walk you through is basically the exact workflow that you all would be enjoying if you were going to pull up a brand new job and start that search, right? So up top, you can see that we already have the company that we're hiring for. You can always change that if need be, though. Here's where you're going to enter your title. And based on your title, we'll actually give you some examples of specific requirements that we think you guys might want, right? Based on exactly, what we have titled up here. In this case, though, I'm just going to go ahead and use a very simple, straightforward list of requirements. Looking for a CSM with 4 to 5 years of experience in SaaS, New York City based, right? Now, we can get way more detailed than that, but just for the sake of it, I'm going to go ahead and create this job position right here. Now, while that's running in the background, the user is then prompted, of course, to actually start building out the email campaign. Now, a couple options here. One, you can just write manually your email copy, right? If you want to go that route. If you already have some copy that works for you, by all means, feel free to copy and paste. What you're going to notice right below is option number 2, which is where you can just steal past email copy from some of the other campaigns that you built, especially if you know it works very well. Or last but not least, you can generate with AI. Now, generation with AI is pretty cool. What this will do, again, kind of as Katie alluded to, over time, it'll understand your outbox and it'll understand the way that you're communicating with candidates. And what it'll do is it'll start to mimic your voice and your tone inside of these outbound messages. So in this case, it wrote for me a 3-step email campaign, right? All I have to do now is tailor it however I want to. And of course, even in some of these locations here, I've got like a specific addition for a variable. Right here, it's the AI personalized sentence, which will analyze, of course, the end user, the candidate, give us a sentence about why we think they're perfect based on our requirements, based on the company that we're hiring for, and based on the role, and then actually enter that in for a little bit of extra personalization right there. So that has brought us now through the ability to, of course, put in our requirements, build the job, build out our email campaign. And as this starts to load over here on the left, what I'm going to do is run us through a couple pre-lit searches that I've already created. So you'll notice here at the very top, this is the search that I had run actually for our team here, right? We're looking to start building out our team. So I wanted to find people that are currently sales managers in the SaaS industry. And this is where it starts to get fun because I'm looking for people that actually played a collegiate sport. Right. So that should already start tossing up some flags for everybody on the call, because we know, historically speaking, looking for items like that on, for instance, LinkedIn is, needle in a haystack, right? You almost have to reverse search by going to a specific university and try to backtrack through all the people on their rosters. But as we know, right, sometimes when we're speaking with sales leaders, we know that they want people with that competitive edge. We know that they're identifying and indexing for people that have maybe played a sport historically. So that is something that's important to them. Right. And last but not least, NYC based, pretty straightforward. So what this will now do is provide to everybody a list of people that we think, based on this search and based on those requirements, are going to be a perfect fit for the role. Now, here's where it gets a little bit different than LinkedIn, because historically, as we know, we all want to go through and just doom scroll LinkedIn for hours and hours on end to find those perfect people. What we're really trying to do here is change that workflow to be a little bit more of like a binary yes or no, almost like a swipe left or right on Tinder, right? So for Darren right here, right? Let's say, look, we really like the background, right? He meets all 4 criteria points here. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't read it out loud, but I'm sure if we check his LinkedIn, it would probably show us that he played a sport somewhere in college. Okay, Hampton University football, amazing, great. So we've made it. So at that point, right, you can decide either to put him on the team or maybe to reject, right? So let's say we really like Darren. We're gonna go ahead and click add to outreach. Now, that one click there did a whole lot of things. One, it put him into that email campaign that we all just kind of created together a moment ago. 2, it located his contact information. That's going to be personal email address right there that we've now found for you. So no more needing to go out and buy extra contact finding enrichment tools. It's put them into that email campaign so it can start the outbound process. So no more sequencing tools. And of course, it's trained the model. So now the model understands, hey, we really like this person. Let's continue to show more people like that person, Darren, a moment ago. Now, on the inverse of that, right, this is where we can go ahead and click reject. So maybe we really like Patrick, but we just have like a vendetta against Ricotta for some reason. Right? I don't know, whatever it might be. So we can say, you know what, I want to go see fewer people from this company. That'll train the model a bit. But then you can also choose to reject them for any specific reason here, right? So maybe we don't love the industry that they were in. We can go ahead and say, you know what, mismatched industry, see you later, right? So again, that's going to start to train the model. After a couple days of going through this and basically saying yes and no to the people that we're able to locate for you, this will inevitably allow us to turn on auto outreach, which will basically just take people directly from this list here, and you can pick and choose the velocity and how many you want to do every day, but it'll take them from here and actually put them directly into your outbound cadences with no step by you, which means you guys wake up on a Tuesday, right? Instead of just like beelining to LinkedIn, right? You can do the things that you want to do. You can check up on your candidates. You can follow up with them, right? You can cross off those other lists on your priority line because we're going to be doing the work for you in the background to start filling this pipeline and filling up those interview slots. All right, I'm seeing some questions pop up. Definitely like to do this as more of like a back and forth. So I'm going to start reading a couple of these if that's cool. Let's see, Brett, same searches might be considered bias. It's also the core of diversity sourcing. Yep. Does it add them to the ATS if they respond with interest? Yeah, absolutely. So we've got ATS integrations built and ready to rock. I'm assuming a lot of you guys are between the trifecta of Ashby, Lever, and Greenhouse. So we've got you covered on all fronts there. If it's another ATS you're using, just let us know. I'm sure we probably work with them as well. There's a lot of filters and settings you can create and like when you want to bring people over to the ATS, like whether it's right when you add them to the outreach, whether that's only after they reply back to you, whether it's only if they're interested. We can handle that on a case-by-case basis, but the settings there are built. All right, Ben. How does the project determine NYC base? Will it show candidates with New York only, greater New York? Yes, this is something that we're actually still working through right now. All feedback would be helpful. And for clarity, everyone, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but we're technically pre-launch year still. So you're still coming to us at a very fun time where we're looking for as much feedback as possible. But Steve, I think at this point, it's basically like a 10-mile radius from like a city center or something.
What is it called? Metro areas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little gray area right now, Ben, but we're going to continue to refine that. And like, we'll probably end up building out a system where you can select like how many miles away from a specific town as well, because we all know the Bay Area tends to be large, right? And like, does it fully include Oakland? Who knows? Jordan, we've got Workday integration.
Probably.
We're building everything through Merge. So I'm assuming they're probably playing nice with Merge, and just about everybody does these days. But Jordan, we can get back to you on that one specifically. Bounce rate on personal emails, Tony, great question. Right now, very low. And again, we, across the board right now, don't have too many like full users because we are still pre-launch here. But what we're seeing though is significantly higher than a positive email rate historically. Right now, what we're seeing is about 82 to 84% accuracy on these personal email addresses, with a very, very low bounce rate, right? Now, of course, that breaks down to industry and like who you're trying to hire from, whether it's, legal can be tough sometimes, or like healthcare can be really tough. But when it comes to like the tried and true and B2B SaaS, you guys are going to be just fine. All right. Sorry, I think I might have skipped a question too here. Is there a way to upload a list and project from LinkedIn? Yeah, absolutely. So just like our old software that we built before Interstellar, we built a Chrome extension that will allow you to go right on top of any LinkedIn profile that you're looking at, click our button, take that profile, bring them right into your outbound here. In that moment, we'll find their contact information for you, put them into the campaign, of course, put them into the ATS as well, and get the party started, as they say. All
There's
right.
part 2 of that question.
Part 2.
It will. So it says those were already interviewed or reached out. So we do 2 things. Before we even reach out to a candidate, we check both your ATS and your email account to see if you've ever communicated with them before in the past, and warn you before we actually reach out to them.
Cool. And Michelle, I think that probably covers the additional expansion there as well. Option to send LinkedIn message or InMail. Not right now. So right now we're actually honing in for this MVP specifically on email. We find that that's, for the most part, historically what's worked the best for a lot of teams. That all being said, though, there's a whole wide world out there for multi-channel communication, right? Texting is getting bigger and bigger every year, and then it starts to fluctuate, and then it gets big again. So that's something that we're looking at, right? LinkedIn messages absolutely as well. But for today, this is going to be email only.
We have a workable integration. I'm just fast tracking. And we don't pull up work emails. Every email that comes into the system is automatically validated, so it's only personal emails. So we won't send an email out to any email address that is well known to be bounced. So all of those safeguards are in place already.
Yep. Michelle's question: can it tell if we've already sent them an InMail?
It cannot. Yeah, LinkedIn is getting kind of more nefarious on playing with others. So anything related to LinkedIn today is not very feasible. So no, at the moment, no, but maybe in the future.
What we did at Interstellar, though, was build a way for us to be able to read the inbox. And if you have a specific setting where it will email you every time that there's an InMail, we can basically see if that came back in. There's a way for us to build it in the future. It's a little shaky and it's not perfect. But that is a great question, Michelle. Definitely something for us to be thinking about here. All right. I don't see LinkedIn ever letting third-party tools use InMail. Yeah, with you. That's kind of a death wish, but like a guy can dream. All right. Let's see who else you got. Ben, thank you for the love on Interstellar. I'm also sorry. Yeah, I mean, hey, this is a publicly listed deal. I'm not going to go too far there. Yeah, so it's going to be very close, right? Like today, it's a little bit more bare bones in terms of the functionality we have around the email sequencing. I think like the depth of reporting that we had at Interstellar is something that we're like really excited to get right back to. Right. Today, it's not there. We're doing basically all of our brain power into what you're looking at kind of here in the search, because if we can't nail that, you guys shouldn't be using us anyway. But Ben, we will get there. Okay.
That's just
Yeah. So I'm gonna pause on questions for now, but I appreciate the conversation back and forth here, and everyone's engagement. So I did run a couple other searches across the board here, right? One of them, tech savvy lawyers. So what we did here was we actually looked up people who have a JD, but also a computer science undergrad, and at one point have worked in the tech industry, right? Like that's kind of a death wish on like a LinkedIn search, right? It's a really tough thing to do. But what we've done here now is with this new summary search ability, we've now collected a list of people, right, across the country that follow these specific requirements, right? So we've got Dave right here, right? JD, right? Doctorate from Santa Clara, right? Ian, currently data privacy lead security at Gusto, but also has, the JD under him, right? Same thing with Gregory. So the reason I'm showing you guys this is more so to open your minds as to what the future could hold as you start to go through here and start search for people, right? It's no longer like, hey, let me try to confine myself to these boxes that these other tools have provided to me. Now it's, you know what? I know that my sales leader really loves sports, right? Like I know that we've hired like the last 2 SDRs have come right from, like a baseball team in the South. Like let's try to do the same thing again, right? Or I know that my director of engineering over here, always indexes for people who have, at least 5 years of Python experience. Go ahead and type it in, right? That's the beauty of really what we're trying to do here. In this case, AI ML engineer that's built embedding systems, lives in SF and has 5+ years of experience, also has been first 50 at one of their last companies, right? So across the board, this is really where we're trending to. But I don't want to bore you with the search too much. I do want to show you guys what it looks like once you actually get the outbound started, and what this looks like across the board there. So in this case, we got a couple people, right? We just added Dare into that campaign a second ago. But here's what the emails will look like. The current setting that I have on this is I want to manually send everything, so I'm not having it automatically jet out for me, just so I can take a peek at it and see if I like it. In this case, I really like these. I click send now, done, email sent, right through your sent mailbox as if it's you. Now, of course, once we start getting responses, that's also important. So I'm going to show you guys the product designer one here. I've got an inbox for you, for Andrew Wang, right? Now, we sent Andrew an email the other day, right? Hey, you look like a great fit, take the job. Obviously, kind of a fake message there. Andrew gets back, yep, sure, Friday after 12:30 EST. Now, here's where the cool part comes in. I did not touch this, right? What Pin did is it read my calendar for me. It understood what I have open, what I don't. And it actually drafted this email and sent it right back out to him after analyzing my calendar, right? Along with the invite to that specific link, right? So Andrew has now gone through the entire system. And if I have this thing on auto source, right? He's, been sourced through Pin. He's been added to my campaign. He's been engaged with, he's been engaged back with, and he's been scheduled onto my calendar. I just show up the next day to work, screen him, and make sure that he's a great fit. That's really where we're trying to get to, right? And this is where the dream lies. It's in turning on all of these automations across the board here. Auto approving candidates. Right now, you can limit it. So if this is 5 per day, it's 50 per day, up to you, right? How many emails are we going to send on your behalf, right? Do you want us to auto schedule your meetings for you? Do you want us to get rid of the people who haven't gotten back to you after 15 days, right? So all of those smaller things and those workflows that you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis, where you could be spending your time elsewhere, that's really what we're trying to do here. All in all, I think a good way to look at Pin is basically providing yourself with an Iron Man suit as a recruiter, right? We don't want to replace anyone, but we do want to make sure that you guys have all the blasters and thrusters that you need to be as successful as possible whenever you guys show up to work. All right. Let's do some more questions. This is great. You guys are just loading up the chat bar here. So let's jump into that. Okay. All right. We've got Brett, Lemless figured it out. Good to know. Okay, that is good to know. I mean, if they can do it, then it's possible. Cool. You can respond at the end. I assume global search. Yeah, so right now we're actually doing just United States only for now. We are going to open this up, but again, as we're launching this MVP, we're keeping it local for now. Can we delay the auto response emails?
It automatically chooses a time available. So dependent on what you set your email sending availability to, we'll send it out during that time. I think it by default already chooses about 15 minutes to delay.
Cool. Brett, you had Greenhouse, no image. Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
It's called sourcing automation, but neither here or there.
Do the invites sync to the ATS as an interview with a feedback form? I would imagine that might. So no, not from our end. I would imagine depending on how you've configured the ATS based on meetings on your calendar, that might be happening automatically for you. But I think every ATS does it a little bit differently. So Nicole, I guess we'd have to figure out which one you're using. All right, Dan Mokel, glad you're here. Do you see different use cases for internal versus external recruiting teams? Are you focusing on either for the MVP? I think that's a great question. Right now, what we're really focusing on is internal, right? we've been doing a ton of work with founders like at very, very early stage companies that are just trying to get their feet under them before they make a great hire like one of you all. And then, beyond that, smaller TA teams have really been benefiting from this. And that's where we've been living for the most part. We'll probably open this up to a little bit more like the external or agency side in the future, but it's definitely not one of our priorities here today. Cool. Looks like we have a couple more through Ben and Nicole. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to like take yourself off mute and ask us directly if you like, or use like that funny little like hand raise situation through Zoom. Happy to chat.
All right, I got a question. I think I know the answer, but I always like to push it out there. Cost. Tell us how much this costs.
Yeah. So right now it's $299 per month per user for the entire shebang, as we call it, right? So everything that you've all seen today, the sourcing, the email finding, the sequencing, the scheduling, the inbox, whole thing, $299, right? What we're also launching here, which is not on our website, there's another package that's actually going to be $100. So this is called Essentials, and it's everything that you've seen here minus the sourcing. So the way that you can think about this is if you guys are utilizing something like Gem or Sourcewell and you're paying $240 to $350 a month or something like that to help you find emails on top of LinkedIn, sequence them, and report on exactly how you're doing, this is going to be the kind of like the answer to that, but for hopefully a fraction of the price. We've just found that it doesn't make any sense to be charging people an arm and a leg for that workflow anymore, especially with everything that we can accomplish with AI. So we've made the decision to cut that down significantly. So it's a really easy way to get started here. To piggyback on all that though, Amir, like great question. This is also going to be on a full 2-week free trial. Steve mentioned yesterday on LinkedIn that if you showed up today, there's going to be like a little something extra for you. We're going to throw another week onto it for everyone that has attended here. So this is going to give you almost a full month at it to really get your hands dirty, understand it, get a feel for it, and hopefully place candidates in that time. We really love to hear the success stories, right? We're now getting to the point where people are just finding PIN on their own, signing up without any help from any of us, and getting back to us saying, hey, like, I do want to pay for this, but I also just placed my first candidate, like just wanted to let you know. And those kinds of things have been really great for everybody on this end of here.
Thank you. Ginny had a question I think is really great, and I want to piggyback on it. She wrote, if you're in our shoes now, what missing features on your roadmap would prevent you use PIN now versus 6 to 12 months down the road? So like, how's the product going to change over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I love that question, Ginny. I'm going to pass this one to the guy that built the dang thing and let him answer for you.
There's a lot of like probably smaller details that we learn every single day from usage, but I'll like skip those for the time being, kind of talk about like the big major roadmap around like the 6 to 12 months. So one of the key things is heavily around sourcing and search. And so if you we had an initial system 3 or 4 months ago, of which we learned that it wasn't good. More typically related to, I don't know if you've used other products, but you chat with a chat bot and it converts it into like Boolean searches, of which we found we kind of built a similar solution to it. And we found that it worked very, very poorly. And a lot of those companies kind of like tout AI, and basically there's like 0 AI features. It's really all it is just filling in the boxes for you that you could do yourself. I find filling in those boxes way easier than trying to get a chat bot to do it for me. So what we did was we scrapped that entire system. We literally threw it out the door and rebuilt it from scratch about a month ago, or starting about a month ago. And what we did was essentially this new system where you literally, we put all the LLM's intelligence, OpenAI, whatever LLMs out there that's currently bleeding edge, we wrap its entire intelligence on top of every single resume that's in there. So we can know very, very like specific details. So like an example is you could search for a software engineer, and we know that is also a web developer, mainly because the LLM knows it. But it's not only just tech roles, it's any role out there that basically the LLM has learned and trained on. So that's kind of like this newer system. We're still building it. So one of the key things is that we've embedded things like their experience, their education, prior job postings, and all these related items. And we're still trying to find more and more and more data points to provide to you when you're like searching for pieces like that. If I were to explain essentially like where we are in our progress there, it's about 50% done. And we're improving it almost every 3 days. There's new and new features towards that search. So that's going to be like kind of a major milestone. The second one is, again, I think the next feature that we're kind of approaching next is application review. So very similar in nature, where like if you're a huge like shop, you get like 10, 20, 30,000 people applying to your roles. It's sometimes very, very difficult to like sort through essentially all of those resumes. So we're building kind of like a solution to help you basically review all those applications and bubble up ones that actually match criteria that you're looking for. So we're working on that in the near future. And as this slide kind of like alludes, we want to do end-to-end recruiting. So there are items that we're planning, but can't talk about just yet, where we're like kind of taking over the entire recruitment process from start to finish.
I'm sure you guys can probably guess what that means without us having to say it out loud. Jenny, one last thing, just like transparently, I don't think that our email sequencing functionality and reporting is where it needs to be. Just be like fully upfront with you. I think we're getting there, right? Like it just hasn't been our focus. So, and this is more to like Ben's point about like the good old interseller software and like how that was acting. The sooner we can get back to the functionality and the ability for you to like really comb through your people and figure out like where they exist inside your timeline, I think we're going to be in a good spot. But like today, that would hinder me from making an initial jump, potentially if I was used to using something like that historically.
Gents, thank you both so much for the responses to those questions. I know we only got about 12 minutes left. At the end, we leave the last like 3 or so minutes for just community-based voting so that you can see some real data in real time. But before we get to that, I don't want this to entirely be just us peppering you with questions. We always want to provide value to you as well. On this call today, you have about, well, you had 36, now we're about 30. Largely heads of TA on the conversation, at least all of the Syelo members are. Are there any questions that you have for us that would be beneficial to you, that might help with road mapping or decision making, whatever? And if the answer is no, that's totally fine too. But do want to provide the opportunity for you to ask the community questions that you may have.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a couple. I spent all day talking to folks in your position, and I always love getting the feedback on it. A question that I always ask is like, where's your bottleneck, right? Like, is it in that top of the funnel? Is it actually the process of engaging? Is it like bad email copy that we can't figure out? Like, if you guys could even just put it in the chat, like it would be super helpful. But like, just like listing whatever your biggest bottleneck is or top 2 on like a day-to-day basis really does help us figure out how to engage our roadmap here and build this thing out to the point where it really is just kind of your AI assistant. So any feedback on that side would be great.
Yeah, if folks in the channel can put maybe their 1 or top 2 biggest pain points right now that in the chat box, that would be amazing.
Yeah. And beyond that too, like, I think a big value point, I know someone asked this question before, Tony, I think it might've been you, is like, you know, why you, comparatively speaking to other people in the space right now. I think we've all been living in such a tool economy in the recruiting space for so long, right? Like you buy one thing to send your emails, you buy one thing to find those emails, like ZoomInfo, and you pay tens of thousands of dollars a year. It's crazy, right? And you have to use another thing like LinkedIn Recruiter professional services, and you got to pay thousands there as well. So we've been so used to kind of building this like Frankenstein tech stack for so long. I guess I'm curious, like, are you guys, from what your perspective, starting to see that like end? Like, are you starting to see things consolidate more, or are you still going through the process of juggling like multiple different contracts across the board for all the different workflows that you guys have?
For us, it's nothing being as connected as it probably needs to be. And
Yeah.
I'm someone who has just spent 3 months trying another AI sourcing tool that was part of a silo tank. And my biggest complaint was, one, you're getting lost in these personal emails and you're getting bounces on these personal emails. Look at how inundated a personal email inbox is. I get much better responses when I do LinkedIn InMail, especially on the GTM side of the house. So I was having to not only send emails through this new tool, but also go back, try to go into my LinkedIn, find that person, send that in InMail to get recognized and to get their attention, which was time consuming. And I could do that all on my own through LinkedIn. So it really wasn't worth my time. And so then taking that tool and connecting that to my ATS, I use Rippling. There's no interconnection there. So now I have to manually upload that candidate. And so it's almost creating more work for me. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of disconnect, even with the new tools and the time saving that's supposed to be happening.
Yeah, you're using the brand new Rippling ATS, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I've recently heard through some grapevines that they don't play nice with others, so it's a tough
They like
world.
to charge an arm and a leg for every little thing,
I know.
but they're really great. I do love them. I do love them.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully maybe through this group, maybe we can strong arm them, build an integration with others or play nice with others at least.
At the
They're
very
very open to that.
nice.
Can we tag that in the silent? No, I'm just
We'll put it in our Rippling channel and have everyone reach out to them from a Rippling customer perspective.
There you go. Thank you, by the way. That's such an amazing answer and super helpful for us. Consuelo, I see you asked a question on reporting. Yeah, we do have a reporting page as well here. Right now it's slightly bare bones, but we are capturing a whole bunch of data on both a team perspective as well as like individual user and like the actions that they're doing every day, every week, every month. So you're able to track, of course, how many people you've sourced, how many people you've even said no to and why, you know, how many emails you sent, their open reply rates, book meeting rates, whole 9 yards. So that's all part of it today. Again, that's one of the items that we do need to pour a lot of TLC into just because it's probably not where it needs to be at like a full speed situation, but we're getting there. Thank you everyone so much for all these answers over here. And last question that I have is, I mean, obviously I'm coming to you all from a sales perspective. And I think like something I always try to do is sidecar my sales processes, right? Like I'm not ever trying to sell a piece of software to the person. It's figuring out like, all right, how can we work together to have this technology instituted into your team in order to help you, right? And I think what I've found so often with TA leaders recently is it's a tough market, right? And their budgets have been, you know, slashed recently, right? And so I guess I'm curious, like, is there appetite for something like this that you guys would want to use and feel passionate about bringing this to whoever needs to approve it, whether it's the CFO, founder, whoever it might be? Is there appetite for something like this here?
Yeah, I'll go. I think so. As long as there's no like minimum number of months you have to subscribe.
Month to month.
Okay, that's huge. You know, I'm seeing that as a trend. So congrats on that, and thank you for that. And offering that essentials, I think is going to be really big as well. I mean, because essentially then you can get, no pun intended, you can get 2 for the price or less than the price of 1, which I think is brilliant positioning. I wanted to get your take on, now that I've been in tech over a decade and in different domain areas and now in TA tech, what I have seen is, you know, you start where there's immaturity in the market, you start with like niche players who provide point solutions, right?
Yep.
And then those mature into integrations with the large players. And then there's a push and a drive for consolidation, right? So it seems like no matter where you're at in that cycle, consolidation is always the end goal. Is that what you're seeing as well? Is that a fair assessment? And how is that affecting kind of your future plans?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think we look across not even just recruiting tech, but tech in general. Everything has become so horizontal. You can't buy Zoom info now without getting like also a call recorder or like a email sequencer inside of it, right? Like the larger players in the space are trying to gobble up what they can, I think, and become the like jack of all trades. I think the strategy that we've taken historically, like even especially with Interstellar, is let's be, you know, the master at what we do here, right? And I think we built something that was so useful and so quintessential to the success of so many people that we want to do it again, right? But now this time, like we found, and we've heard the feedback for years of like the biggest bottleneck is top of funnel and sourcing, right? It's like, all right, cool. Well, like AI got introduced in the last 2 years. How can we use that to like really build something vertical here that people are going to love? Now, naturally, there are other elements to the workflow that you all take when it comes to sequencing and, you know, scheduling. I see is a big pain point that's like taking away from the candidate experience here, right? Like, I don't see that as us being necessarily like that horizontal. I see it as just like a need to have, right? Like nobody wants to buy a piece of software that's going to be like kind of okay at a lot. I think like we're somewhat wide, but we're still very vertical in the way that like what we're building here is truly the sidekick for every single TA professional out there. And really is like their one-stop shop to make sure that they're being as effective as they can be.
There's some examples too, like Rippling is trying to be a Workday, right? They like built an ATS. Workday also built an ATS. I think it's like all about trying to provide more value, but I don't think just a large company can do that. I think like startups like us can also provide a lot of value in this day and age.
Mm-hmm. So forgive the direct follow-up question, but considering you've already exited, is that the goal here?
Exiting? No,
Yeah.
I think I really like, you know, the first time around, I would say like 2 things. First one, Interstellar was kind of tools, right? We kind of built all-in-one kind of products for many different verticals, which was tough because it was hard to pivot just straight into recruiting. And the other thing I would say too is in 2019, AI and LLMs were really bad back in the day. So it made it impossible to kind of build a dream like this. Now in this day and age in 2024, a lot of that technology has matured and developed and is getting smarter year over year. So I do see us becoming kind of like a new player in the AT or like in the entire like recruitment space with AI as like the foundation versus just kind of like forms and fields or anything that just helps you out. But anyways, I think I'm supposed to save the last 50 seconds. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry, but I know there's so many great questions. James, if you can stay on for 2 more seconds if possible, that'd be awesome. We've got 2 questions to put in the chat box. Give us a Y or an N, right? So the first question is, today, would you take this product to your hiring manager or your direct report to ask for permission to buy, to ask for budget? Awesome. Second question for us here at Syelo. Should Syelo approach Steve and Connor and ask them for the honor to invest in their company? Y or N?
Man, you guys are feeling awfully nice today.
There we go. Gentlemen, I will reach out independently, but it has been an absolute pleasure having you both here. It's been refreshing to see a product that I think is really being built for us versus one that's trying to automate us. And I think that's really where we as an ecosystem like to double down on companies building in this space. We love the thesis that AI is going to make us smarter, better, faster, more efficient. So kudos to building something awesome. You're seeing the whys come through strong on both questions. So congratulations. You built something really cool. Looking forward to the future for you, and hopefully we can be a small part of it. But everyone, thank you for joining today. Syelo Tank, Pin, thank you both for coming and presenting. We'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I also put the Calendly link inside the chat bar here. So if you guys are interested in learning more and do want to get that full 3-week trial, then yeah, we'll get you guys taken care of. Thank you, Sabrina.
We'll share that link with everyone who attended today and in the ecosystem.
Love it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.